The court is back in session. I would like to ask whether any one of the judges on the bench have any question to put for this witness. You may now proceed, Judge Friends.
Thank you, President. Before I ask you questions, I want to tell you two things. Firstly, if you don't remember something, because it has happened a long time ago, it's perfectly okay to tell me I don't remember. And the second issue, if you get emotional again, as you did this morning, and if you feel you need a break, please tell us immediately. You will get the break. Have you understood that?
Witness, yes, I understand it.
Okay, then let's get started. My questions will be follow-up questions on what the prosecutor asked you this morning. You told him a lot of things which none of us has ever heard before because you have never been questioned before. And for me, there were a couple of things which I didn't understand quite well. So I'll ask you a few questions which cover the same territory as the prosecutor has done in the morning. To begin with, can you remind us exactly when you came to when you were brought into Kramtajam and when you went out of there? Because I've written down two different dates. So when did you come into Kramtajam prison?
Answer. I do not recall exactly when I was put in Kramtajam. And I was released when Vietnam entered the country, and we were told that there were aerial bombing. During that time, I could make an escape.
Thank you. I understand you don't know exactly when you were brought there, but can you tell us, was it more than a year? Did you stay more than a year there, or shorter, or longer? If you can.
Answer. This morning, I was asked, but the question was not in detail. I worked in a hospital in Dachau, and I was sent to Kramtajam in 1977. Specific questions were not put to me. Indeed, I was sent to work in a hospital in Dachau for 2 years, after which I was brought into Kramtajam.
Okay. I'm now coming to the subject of your husband's execution. I just have one question in this context. You told us that you were shown the tree or the place where your husband was allegedly executed, and you went there and you found bodies, but none that you could identify as your husband's. Now, my question to you is, these bodies, were they lying on the ground, or were they in a ditch, or were they buried or half buried? What situation did you find when you came there?
Yeah.
Answer. There was a chance that I went to the place where my husband was allegedly executed. I did not notice specifically where the bodies or skeleton remains lie at that place.
I understand that. Perhaps you can tell us. I'm not interested in the exact location of the place. What I would want to know is, when you came there, what did you see? Bodies lying on the ground, bodies in a ditch, buried, not buried?
Yeah.
Answer. Upon my arrival at that place, I saw only skeletal remains, and the skeletal remains were on the ground, were on the surface. If they were in the ditch or in the ground, I could not see them, and I could say that perhaps people were killed on the ground. That's why the skeletal remains were there.
So I take it, and this is partly a question to translation, we are really talking about skeletons, meaning bones, as opposed to bodies. Is that correct? That's not a translation problem now. What you saw were bones. Or did you see bodies?
President, please hold on, Madam Witness. Please wait for the microphone. Witness, I saw skeletal remains or bones. There were scalp bones, bones of the leg bones, and everything was there.
During the time you were there, did you ever see...
Mic is not activated, Your Honor.
Sorry. During the time you were there, did you ever see other places where you saw skeletal remains or bodies?
Yeah. Còn lại
Witness, for other places, I did not dare walk around and explore. I only went to the place where I was told that my husband was allegedly killed. I wanted to see whether it was the place where he was killed. For other places, as I said, I did not dare walk around and explore.
Mm-hmm. My next question is generally about executions. You told us that people were executed, that you did not directly witness an execution, but you saw one incident where first a group of prisoners was led into a place or towards a certain place, and a while later you saw people with bloody clothes wiping their swords or knives. Just to clarify, this is the only instance while you were there when you witnessed something which you thought was part of an execution? Or did you at any other time see either an execution yourself or a similar incident?
Yeah.
Answer. I saw that people were executed, and in fact, I did not see the real execution at that time, but I could see that a blood stain on clothes. I could say it was indirect experience. Knives were sharpened and music were played over the loudspeaker. This happened very often.
What happened very often?
ចាអញ្ចឹងខ្ញុំសូមបង្ហាញ
Witness, I would like to inform Your Honours that I did not see the incident or incidents by my own eyes. A woman with the husband together with the baby were killed. One day there were many prisoners detained at that place. One old lady said that she wanted to wait for her child, and the old lady was pregnant, and she did not know where to go. After a short while, I heard the sound of crying of a baby. I did not know what happened. I heard that the sound or the screaming, but I did not witness the incident with my own eyes.
Was this the only time you heard screaming, or were there more incidents when you heard screaming?
ចា
Answer: I heard the screaming of a baby just one time at midnight. For me and other prisoners, we were put in the prison, and the screaming was not far away from the place where we were sleeping. And the screaming perhaps came out from another side, and there were cassava plants in between the screaming place and the place where we were sleeping.
Witness, you told us in the morning you know that many people have been killed, and you know that they were not brought away but killed. How did you know that?
ចាខ្ញុំ
Answer: I knew this from other or former prisoners who had been detained before me. These people, Rom and Ha, were trusted by the cadres. They told me about that, and I was told by them not to go one certain place. When I was detained, I did not know how many ditches or pitch were there. And after the regime failed, I went to observe and look at the ditches or pitch of Krang Dachan. During that time, I could see that people were killed in those ditches.
You told us that in the morning, I believe, that loud music was played when people were executed. Was this the only time when music was played, or were the loudspeakers also used for other purposes, announcements, whatever?
ចា
Answer: I did not know what the purpose of playing loud music. I heard people said that prisoners were allowed to return home, and I was doubtful why the music was played when we were told that the prisoners were allowed to return home. The loud music was played to make us to not make us hear of the sounds of killing. That's what I presumed.
I see. Yes, then just one question about interrogations. You told us about your own interrogation, and you told us, if I remember correctly, that you saw other interrogations. Is that correct?
Answer, yes, that is correct.
Did you see that often, or, I don't know, every day, once a week, 3 times altogether while you were there? So did you see it often, or just rarely, once in a while?
Witness, when I first arrived at that place, I never experienced or saw such incident for a year, and they were not afraid that I could make an escape from that place. I was allowed to have meals at a dining hall. It was near the execution place, and we could see the interrogation place, and we could hear also the interrogation. Actually, we were not allowed to go anywhere. Only when we were asked to conduct or do any work, we could walk around.
Again, my question, was interrogating people something that happened every day, or once a week, or once a month? Or was it different?
Answer. After prisoners entered the prison for one night, they were interrogated. And if there were many prisoners coming into the prison, 2 prisoners would be interrogated in the morning. And until they completed all interrogation of all prisoners, and they stopped interrogating. And for a new prisoner who came into the place, interrogation would start one after another.
Okay, I'm not asking you now about the modalities because you told us about that. I'm coming now to my 2 last questions. They have nothing to do with the situation in the center. You mentioned that you were considered to be of a class below ordinary people. Can you tell us a bit about the system of classes during the Khmer Rouge period and what it meant to be considered as a class below ordinary people?
Answer. I was a newcomer in the area, and I was pitied. I asked people why and what would happen to me, and I was told that I was considered in a class below ordinary people. People who had been there already, they would receive things or belonging, and they would share each other. But for me, because I was considered a class below ordinary people, I received nothing. I was under watch, I was under surveillance. They would like to know why I knew many things. And I was asked to do the sweeping sometime, and I did the work.
Okay, go ahead.
ដោយពេល
I later learned that I was considered in a class below ordinary people. I was given a house to sleep in, and the house had no roof, and there were no walls, and the house was deserted actually. My husband and I, together with my child, living in that area. My husband perhaps knew about this matter, but he did not dare to tell me everything. He told me to sweep the house, and he was afraid that I could not sweep the house because we had to wake up early and went to work. I was wondering. Every day I woke up and went downstairs. I could see the marks of steps, of footsteps. I could notice the footprints below my house. I was in doubt. Every day I could see the footprints. One day I decided to ask the wife of Jantiep village chief. She considered me as her adopted daughter. I asked her why there were footprints below my house. She hugged me and told me that she was about to weep. She told me that perhaps I did not know. I was told that my family was under surveillance, and in my mind I consider myself innocent people. Why my family was under surveillance? And they classified me as a class below ordinary people because my family was under watch or under surveillance.
Just to get a halfway decent record, I got a translation that said your house didn't have a roof and didn't have walls. That's not a house. So can we get on the record what the structure looked like? Might be a translation issue, but...
ផ្ទះនោះ
Answer. How it was the same as it depicted in the song. The roof, actually it was like it was like there was no roof because the roof was in the very bad condition. Actually there was a pillar, but we could see the sky through the roof, and we could see the surrounding through the walls. So it was the same as what it described in the song during that period.
I think we have a good picture now. My last question is, you mentioned at one point that people were sent for re-education. What did you think re-education meant at that time?
Answer. Actually, I was interrogated. There was no actual re-education. when we committed wrongdoings, our name would be sent up to the higher echelon. And then it was the upper echelon decision to keep or to kill us. Actually, we could see in the prison, after a prisoner had arrived for just 1 month or a few months, their body would be swelling and they felt sick.
Yeah, you told us about the starvation and malnutrition. Perhaps I misunderstood the sentence about re-education. Yeah, that's all from my side. Thank you.
President, thank you very much. The Chamber now give the floor to the Defense Counsel for the accused. And first, the Chamber would like to give the floor to the Defense Counsel for Mr. Nguyen Chia to put question. Or Defense Counsel for Mr. Kisampon would like to take the floor first. You may now proceed.
Oui, bonjour, Monsieur le Président.
Yes, good afternoon, Mr. President. Thank you for giving me the floor. We have spoken to Counsel for Nguyen Chia, and if you wouldn't mind, we'll start asking questions to the witness, and then the Nguyen Chia team will wrap it up, if that doesn't pose a problem to you, Mr. President.
Bonjour, Madame.
Good afternoon, Madam. My name is Anta Gise. I'm international co-counsel for Mr. Kyo Sampan, and I have a few questions to put to you on your testimony, particularly on what you said this morning. My first question has to do with the person called No, who was a cook at Krantachan. You referred to her in answer to a question put to you by the co-prosecutor. You also talked of her son. Do you remember the name of her son?
Your son included Khom and another son whose name I cannot recall.
Est-ce que le nom de...
Does the name Soy Sen ring a bell to you?
Yes, I recall that I was detained in a house while he was allowed to work outside the house, as he was used to drag away any dead prisoner and to carry fishes and the rest of the prisoners away, and he had been detained there before I arrived.
Et dans le cadre des...
And as part of your duties at Krantachan, did you have to work with that person? I put this question to you because at the hearing of the 25th of March 2015, and the document is E1/282.1, Soy Sen stated that at times he would accompany groups of women outside of the premises of Krantachan. My question is whether you were in a group of women who had to go and work outside of Krantachan with Soy Sen.
When we were ordered to carry the human fertilizer for the rice field, we were working together with him, and sometimes he put the fertilizer onto the baskets, and we, the women, would carry them over to the rice fields. And during the plantation season, for example, watermelon or cucumber, we also worked with him. He would make beds for the vegetation, and we would plant them.
Est-ce que vous le considériez comme...
Did you consider him as your command superior, that is, your boss who gave you orders, or the instructions he gave you were simply viewed as advice?
Sam was not the person who gave us the orders. In fact, he received the orders from the chief of the prison for us to do. Then he would relay the instructions or the orders to us, and he would be working together with us.
Donc je comprends que vous ne le considérez...
So, do I understand that you did not consider him as a superior?
Yes, that is correct.
À cette même audience, donc,
At the same hearing, that is document E1/282.1, Soy Sen refers to you. And I would like to read out to you what he said and then put questions to you on that. The passage I will read is shortly after 15 hours 36 and 56 seconds, still on the 25th of March 2015. This is what Soy Sen stated. I never spoke with Hun, but Hun fled into the forest with Ta'an. I subsequently met Hun, and she told me that Ta'an had given her instructions when she was with him, and that she had survived. End of the first quotation. Free translation. My first question, therefore, is whether you fled into the forest with Ta'an. Yes or no?
When we were fleeing and reached Pusat, I was asked to make a commitment to another prisoner in Angkor Chai district. His name was Saret, but I did not agree to the proposal. And I did not know when I would be able to flee from the person. And while I was traveling, and while I was cooking rice, there were exchanges of gunfire, and that was the time that I could flee. I was fleeing along with Ta'an, but then we separated when we reached the thick forest. I had a baby to take care, so I could not make a quicker journey as Ta'an did. And that's how I separated from them, including Ta'an.
et est-ce que vous avez...
And did you meet Soy Sen to tell him about under what conditions you fled after you left Krantachan? Did you meet him after 1979 to explain to him under what circumstances you fled?
Three years ago, my child bought me a motorbike so I could travel to Krantachan. And on the first day of the Khmer New Year period, I asked my my son-in-law, to take me on the motorbike to Krantachan in order to search for the name of my husband. And I didn't find his name. Instead, I found my name. and the person there asked me to write down my name, that I am alive, and that I should write my phone number down so that other survivors could contact me, and I did that based on an elderly man who was looking after the area. And later on, I did not go to see Sam, but Sam knew that I was alive, and from what I understand, he went to Krantachan, and probably he was told by the elderly man there that I was alive. Then he gave me a call, and he said that it was fortunate that I survived. I said yes. It was lucky for me that I could have died on several occasions, including when I was there, when I was fleeing. And we did not say anything at all in relation to Ta An.
Et en dehors de cette conversation,
And apart from that phone call you had with Soy Sen, you did not meet with him again on another occasion?
No, I have not met him in person until today, and I only met him via telephone call.
d'accord, je vais vous citer.
Very well. I'll quote the rest of what he said at the hearing of March the 25th, 2015, which ties in with the question put to you by the co-prosecutor this morning, and I'll try to be more specific. This is a question that was put to Soy Sen. And did you tell this investigator informally that you believe that Run had had a love affair with Anne during her time as a prisoner at Krantachan? And her answer was yes. End of quotes. It therefore transpires from this statement that Soy Sen was one of those who spread the rumor that you had a love affair with Ta An. This morning, you stated that it was out of the question to have a love affair with someone who was responsible for your husband's death. My question to you is as follows. Do you know why he spread such rumor and told the investigator that you had a love affair with him?
Yeah.
Sam gave me a phone call and asked me that questions, that whether I fell in love with Anne, and I said no, I did not. But during the fire exchange, I was fleeing together with Anne to the west of the road, and we did not try to run together or plans to meet together and run away. No, I did not make that plan, but I fled from the gunfire exchanges. And maybe from that moment, people conclude that we were together. But in fact, that was not true. I was fleeing initially together with him, and then we separated.
Et ma dernière question.
And my last question, which is related to what you said earlier, you stated that when you returned to Krantachan, you wrote your coordinates, and that is how Soy Sen was able to contact you. My first question is the following. Did other persons from Krantachan contact you, and do you know whether Soy Sen contacted other persons who had also been at Krantachan?
I don't know whether he contacts other individuals. He made a call to me, asking me how I was, and he said that there was a rumor that I fell in love with Anne, and I told him that it was merely a rumor, that I could not fall in love with a person who killed my husband. And he said, if that is the case, then that is good. Because people saw me running together with the aunt to the west direction. And I told him, yes, we were fleeing together in the same direction. But later on, we went separate ways. And he said, that would be good then. It was simply a rumor that he heard. And as I said earlier, it could be because we were fleeing together and that the rumor was made about it.
Monsieur le Président,
Mr. President, I have no further questions for the witness, and my colleague Aung San Moon also doesn't have any questions for the witness. Thank you, Madam Witness.
President, thank you, Counsel. The Chamber would like to hand the floor now to Nunji Defense Team to put questions to this witness. You can proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good afternoon, Your Honours. Madam Witness, can you explain to us why it was that you were running with Ta'an? Why was it that Ta'an took you with him to escape?
Allow me to explain. When I arrived in Pusat, I was asked to make a commitment, that is to marry another inmate by the name of Rain, but I refused. And I knew that because of my refusal, I would be killed. Usually, we had to force ourselves to follow the instructions of Ong Kar. And when the country fell, I returned from Pusat, and we were traveling back with many people. And when I reached Phnom Sruj, near Phnom Srong mountain, there was a gunfire exchange. It was in later afternoon when I was about to cook rice. The Vietnamese soldiers attacked, and we were fleeing, all were fleeing towards the west direction since the gunfire came from the east direction.
I'm not sure if I understand your answer quite yet. My question was why it was you fled together with the prison chief. The Vietnamese were coming. You could have gone anyway, but why did you specifically choose to flee together with the person who was the prison chief?
At that time, I could not remove myself from them. I couldn't find the appropriate opportunity for me to do so, as I did not know about the situation or about where I should go. And when I was asked to marry that man, and I heard the gunfire approaching, it was the gunfire from the Vietnamese soldiers, then I knew that I would have a chance to distance myself from the group. And that was right, as I said earlier. In the early evening on that day, there were many of us, we were preparing to rest. There were many ordinary people there, including Rain, who I was asked to marry. Then there were gunfire exchanges, and the only purpose that I had at the time was try to flee from the area. And indeed, I could flee from the gunfire scene.
Were you the only prisoner from Krang Thach Chan who fled together with An, or were there also other prisoners who were fleeing in the company of Ta'an?
ចាមាន
There were many of us. However, not all of them were Krantachan prisoners. Many of them were from Angkor district, including the men whom I was asked to marry. At that time, there were many new faces, so I could not recognize them all.
I heard you testify earlier about skeletons that you had seen. Is it my understanding that you saw those skeletons after your release from Krang Thach Chan, so after the Vietnamese came?
No, not after the liberation. It was about 6 months before the arrival of the Vietnamese troops, and at that time I had been detained there for over 2 years. And at that time, Yinyo and her relatives were allowed to return. That Dam, San, and Ihan and I were allowed to stay. And as I said, Jipon told me that my husband was killed there, and it was my intention that when I could, I would go there to see if I could find the skeletons of my husband. And this is what I did and what I saw, and it's not a rumor. And it did not happen after the country was liberated. It happened before that.
I'm not sure if I understand your answer completely. Did you say you saw skeletons after grandmother Nor was released, or did I not get that right?
Let me repeat, it was not after the liberation. It happened about 6 months before the liberation, and I was still being detained there. And I was asked to tend the cows, so I could find the opportunity in order to go there and see by myself while pretending to tend the cows. And I wanted to see whether there were skeleton remains there, and yes, I found the skeleton remains there, and I only stayed there briefly, then I moved the cows to the other part.
But where was it exactly in relation to the compound where you saw those skeletons? I'm not quite sure if I understand. Where was it that you saw those skeletons?
It was within the compound of the Krang Thach Chan office. There was a first fence perimeter and the second inner fence perimeter, which was laid with barbed wire, was closer to the compound, and then there was a footpath, and to the west of their footpath there was a shallow pit. And previously I heard the screamings and the voice coming from that area, including the screaming of an infant. And later on, in the last few years, when I visited Krang Thach Chan, I could clearly see the various locations of the detention buildings, of the interrogation house, and the screaming or the voices that I heard during the time, in fact, was near where a shallow pit was. And as for the skeleton remains, it had been gathered and placed in a stupor.
That was a long answer to my question. But you started the answer, I think, that you were tending the cows. Were you tending the cows inside the compound or were you tending the cows outside the compound?
It was within the prison compound. I did not tend the cows every day. However, on that day, they let the cows walk free, and I was asked to tend those cows. So I knew that I could have a chance to go and look in that area, and I chased the cows toward that direction in order for me to make sure that there were skeleton remains there.
So where were these cows walking then when you saw the skeletons?
The cows were walking towards the west direction from the my sleeping quarter, and it was on the other side of the footpath. And when I was there, I had a quick look and I saw the bones there, and then I moved the cows back, as I was afraid that I would be monitored, as I was not supposed to go into that area.
How many meters was it, Madam Witness, from where you slept during your period in Krang Thacham and the skeletons that you say you saw? How far was it?
It was about a bit over 100 meters, and in fact, if someone was talking from that distance, I could hear the noise, although I could not hear the actual words. And in between, there was a cassava plantation, and we could not actually see through the plantation.
Madam Witness, I'm going to ask you maybe a difficult question, but would you be able to make a distinction between the things that you saw when you last visited Krang Thacham a few years ago and the things that you saw during your period when you were detained? Are you able to make that distinction?
During the period that I was detained there, no villager was allowed to go nearby the area. And I heard other people in the prison that the compound, the area of 1 square kilometer was not allowed to be trespassed by the villagers or ordinary people. And during the regime, the area was so quiet, you could not even hear any bird singing. And people were not allowed to go near or to raise any pigs there. Although the location was rather right in the middle of a village, people were prohibited to approach the area. And after the liberation, people from a former village, which was located within the 1 square kilometer, returns to their village. And I was told that at the beginning it was extremely quiet, and you could only hear an owl screaming at night time, and there were a lot of ghosts at night. That's what I was told, and some people did not even dare to stay in their former village.
I will try my question again because I'm not sure if I heard an answer, Madam Witness. Are you able to make a distinction between the things that you saw when you recently visited Krang Tachan and the things that you experienced when you were actually there? Can you make a distinction in your memory between those two events?
During the period of my detention at Krang Tachan, there was an interrogation area, there were detention buildings, there was sleeping quarters for the staff and for the prison chief. However, during my later visit, I saw a stupa which was erected to store the skeleton remains. And there was a building for the monks to come for rituals. And the building was donated and funded by foreign aids. And then evidence and other materials were maintained in that building as proof of what happened. Also, list of prisoners are also maintained in that building, and that's what I have seen.
My last attempt, Madam Witness, is it possible that you saw the skeletons and that you heard about the story of the skeletons during your visit in Krang Tachan, but that you actually never saw skeletons while you were detained at Krang Tachan?
During my detention, of course, I could not see any skeleton remains as people were killed and buried in pits. And only only later on, when I returned to visit, people exhumed the pits and bones were gathered and stored in a stupa.
Thank you, Madam Witness. That clarifies things. Do you remember whether it was somebody who told you about loudspeakers being played while certain things would happen during Krang Tachan? Somebody told you about the loudspeakers?
Answer. I witnessed the loudspeakers being played. I did not recall who mentioned that the prisoner had already been re-educated and they were allowed to go back home. And after this statement, loudspeakers were played. I did not know who made such a statement, and I did not know where the loudspeakers were installed.
Is it possible maybe that Sai Sen told you about loudspeakers being played in Krang Tachan?
Answer. Ipon had been detained years before me. She knew many things in the prison, and other people told me about this as well. We were the victims. We whispered to one another that if a loudspeaker were played, then it would be time for people to go back home. And it was true that when loudspeakers were played, prisoners were walked out of the prison. They were not tied. They could not escape. I mean, the prisoner could not make an escape, even they were untied. Prisoners had very little gruel. They had no energy or strength. I peeped through the crack of the wall. I could see a prisoner were not tied. There were cats. Pusaim and Dam would push the cats. Their parents were already killed. So these people, Dam and Sain, had been there for long, and they were used by people working in the prison.
I'm trying to ask a very simple question. Did Sai Sen tell you about the existence of loudspeakers? Or if not, you witnessed it yourself, can you give us some more details about, for instance, where those loudspeakers were, what kind of music was played, etc.? Can you give us some more details from your own memory?
Answer. I do not know where loudspeakers were installed, but the sound was from the house of the chief. Pol Pot songs were played. I did not remember the scripts of the song.
What can you tell us about the volume of the sound that you heard from the loudspeakers?
Answer. The volume was very high. We could not even hear what was going on except the sounds from the loudspeaker. If one did not try hard to listen to other sounds, they could only hear the sounds from the loudspeaker.
But you're saying that the loudspeakers were only in the office of Ta'an. Is that correct?
Yes, the sound was from that hall, and in the hall there were places for prison guards to sleep in.
But is my understanding correct that you didn't actually see the speakers itself? You just heard sound coming from Ta'an's office. Is that correct?
Answer. Yes. We could not see the real picture of loudspeakers. The sound was from a loudspeaker, although we did not see the physical appearance of the loudspeakers. I am now at this age, and I can understand that the sound came from the loudspeakers. And we could also hear the sound over the loudspeaker while we were working in the work site. So I can clearly say for sure that the sound was from loudspeakers.
But you didn't actually see the loudspeakers. Is my understanding correct?
President, please give your response to the question because you gave your answer before the activation of microphone. Witness, yes, that is correct. I did not see the loudspeakers and I did not know the place where loudspeakers were installed. The loud sounds were placed and we could hear at our work sites, and we could assume for sure that it was the sound from loudspeakers.
I'm going to my next subject, Mr. President. This could be a time to break.
President, thank you. It is now convenient time for a short break. The chamber will take a short break from now until 3 p.m. Court officer, please find a proper place for support staff of TBO and a witness during the short break and have them return before 3 p.m. The court is now in recess.